In Syria, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham extremists meet with Prime Minister Mohammad Ghazi al-Yalili to agree on transition terms as chaos grips Damascus and other Syrian provinces. In Palestine, new Israeli strikes on the Gaza Strip killed several civilians, raising the death toll of the genocide from the Zionist army and continues to perpetrate in the region. And in Venezuela, the candidates for Justice of Peace made visits to the communes throughout the country on Saturday as part of the campaign planning ahead of the December 15th election. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Beren de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. And now we begin with the information as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham extremists meet with Syrian Prime Minister Mohammad Ghazi al-Yalili to agree on transition terms as chaos grips Damascus and other Syrian provinces. The Prime Minister assured in statements to Arab media that almost the entire executive cabinet is in Damascus and that they aspire to a transition with social, economic and political guarantees. However, while these talks are taking place in a hotel in the capital, extremist militants sacked the government palace, stormed the Iranian embassy and freed several terrorists from the prison of Sednaya. On the other side of the country, the troops of the Israeli occupier stormed the Golan Heights with a land intervention, and Syrian pro-Kurdish groups fight fierce battles against Syrian pro-Turkish groups. In this context, the Prime Minister spoke about the need to preserve public institutions.
أيها السوريون الغاليين على قلبي.
Dear Syrians, who are dear to my heart, and who I am to you, and you are to me, I am at home. I did not leave it, because I belong to this country, and I do not know any other country other than my homeland. In these times when people feel anxiety and fear, although they are all keen in this country and its institutions and facilities, I am keen on the public facilities of the state, which does not belong to me and does not belong to anyone else, but belongs to all Syrians. Therefore, we extend our hand to all Syrians who are keen on the facilities in this country, and that is to preserve its facilities. I urge all citizens not to touch any public property, because in the end, it is their property and I am at home. I did not leave it, and I do not intend to leave it, except in a peaceful way, to ensure the continuation of the work of public institutions and facilities of the state, and to spread security and reassurance to the citizens, that everyone will think rationally, and to think about their homeland and their country. We extend our hand even to the opponents who extended their hand and ensure that they did not touch anyone belonging to the Syrian homeland. I have always worked day and night in the private sector, in the public sector, and in the government. And in front of my eyes, I see the interest of this country, and the interest of this country, and we believe in Syria, for all Syrians, and that it is the country of all its people, and that this country can live in peace.
In this context, terrorist groups robbed and looted the Central Bank of Syria in Damascus, and local sources assured that the opposition groups transferred part of the money from the central bank to unknown destinations, while another sum was extracted in cash on bags. At the same time, the Iranian embassy in Damascus was also vandalized, with diplomats fleeing the building to protect their lives. And now let's recap what has happened in the last hours. Rebel terrorist forces have seized detention centers, public media, and the government palace in Damascus. These groups shared images of their advances towards the city, where desolated provinces such as teleSUR could be appreciated. On the other hand, despite the agreement between the leaders of the violent revolt and the Syrian government to carry out an organized transition, in the last hours, the release of prisoners from the Sinai prison has been confirmed. The center hosted serving their sentences several terrorists captured in the middle of the war. The extremists have also seized Damascus airport and, as in Libya, celebrated their entry into the government palace with gunfire. And this is what is known so far about Israel's advance into southern Syria. According to local media, the Israeli forces have entered the border areas in Quintera, and artillery shots have been fired against Syrian territory. Also, according to reports provided by military sources, the occupying army crossed the border fence in the Golan Heights this morning to take control of new positions in the area, as it is revealed that these movements were part of the preparations for the fall of the government of Bashar al-Assad. And while this is going on in the United States, the White House Security Council assured that President Joe Biden is closely following the events in Syria after terrorist groups backed by the U.S. administration, Israel, and other governments took over the capital of the Arab country. The agency detailed that the U.S. president will be in permanent contact with his allies in the Middle East. This comes after terrorist groups launched a military offensive 11 days ago that led to the overthrow of the Syrian government. It should be noted that U.S. presence in Syria, under the pretext of fighting terrorism, has focused on strengthening it, as well as multiple geopolitical objectives, including military bases strategically located around Syria's important oil and gas resources, and the containment of Iranian influence, the protection of Israeli interests, and the counterbalancing of growing influence from Russia and China in the region. And now we have a short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Palestine, new Israeli strikes on the Gaza Strip killed several civilians, raising the death toll of the genocide by the Zionist army that continues to perpetrate in the region. Local media reported that at least 5 people lost their lives and others were injured when an Israeli fighter plane bombed a tent shelter in Al-Mashala neighborhood southwest of Deir al-Balah. While in the city of Gaza, an airstrike destroyed a family apartment, leaving 1 woman dead and several people injured. The genocidal attacks by Israel continue unabated despite the calls for a ceasefire from the UN Security Council. And meanwhile, in Lebanon, the Ministry of Health reported on Saturday that 6 people were killed and 5 were wounded after an airstrike carried out by Israeli troops in the south of the country. This way, authorities informed that 5 of them lost their lives in the locality of Beit Laif, while the 6th deceased and the wounded were recorded in the district of Marjon. For its part, the Israeli army confirmed the bombing in southern Lebanon, claiming that it had identified a militiaman who posed a threat to troops stationed in the region. The attacks add to multiple denouncements made by Beirut against Tel Aviv for violating the ceasefire with Hezbollah on more than 100 occasions. And we move on to other topics. South Korean Prosecutor General Park Se-hyun confirmed on Sunday that President Yoon Suk-yeol is being investigated for treason. The head of state assured that the head of state is registered as a suspect under these charges. The proceedings being carried out by several prosecutors began after numerous complaints were filed in connection with the short-lived declaration of martial law last week. In this context, the president has survived an impeachment motion because his party boycotted the session of the National Assembly on Saturday. And in this context, South Korean ruling party leader Han Dong-hoon offered statements in relation to the early retreat of President Yoon Suk-yeol.
질서 있는 대통령
Through the orderly early retreat of the president, we will minimize the confusion that will be caused to South Korea and its people, stably resolve the political situation, and recover liberal democracy.
바로 세우겠습니다. 윤석열 대통령도 국민의
President
명령을
Yoon Suk-yeol also promised to follow the people's demand and leave plans to stabilize state affairs, including his term, to the party. Therefore, I believe that there will be no confusion in the process of the orderly early retreat.
없을 것이라 생각합니다.
And we continue in South Korea as former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun was arrested on orders of the prosecutor's office as part of the investigation into the martial law ordered by the country's President Yoon Suk-yeol on Tuesday. According to local media, the Special Investigations Headquarters of the South Korean Prosecutor's Office arrested Kim for instigating violence, abuse of authority, and obstruction of justice in the exercise of his duties. In this regard, it was also unveiled that the former South Korean defense minister advised the president to declare the martial law. Kim voluntarily submitted himself to a late-night interrogation by the official body. With the measure, the former minister became the first person to be detained in connection with the 6-hour martial law crisis in South Korea. And in other news, the United States government announced on Saturday that it is sending nearly $1 billion in military supplies to Ukraine. The U.S. Defense Department said that the aid is part of efforts by the administration of President Joe Biden to expedite the delivery of congressionally approved funds before President-elect Donald Trump takes office. The United States said it would continue to work with its allies to provide the support that Ukraine needs to win the war. It is important to note that following the November 5th election in which Donald Trump won, the White House has expedited the delivery of funds previously approved by Congress. And now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you will be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, the candidates for justices of peace made visits to the communes throughout the country on Saturday as part of the campaign ahead of the December 15th election. In this regard, the president of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, explained that in the upcoming days, nominees will share their proposals with the communities and listen to their needs. In these elections, more than 52,000 Venezuelans are nominated to become communal justices of peace, which will have the role of promoting coexistence and dealing with local problems pertaining to the communities. We continue in Venezuela as the International Colloquium Ayacucho 1824-2024 was held in the city of Caracas, an event that delves into the historical analysis of the Battle of Ayacucho and the Bolivarian thought in Latin America. Luis Francisco Blandón with the details.
Más de 20 ponentes,
More than 20 speakers, including historians and academics from Latin America, gather at the Rómulo Gallegos Center for Latin American Studies in the Venezuelan capital. The events will provide an in-depth discussion on the military, political, social and cultural aspects of the Battle of Ayacucho and its transcendence in the Bolivarian project.
Each of the speakers has generated a vision, an analysis corresponding to those results of the Battle of Ayacucho and relating to our own peoples, to our own legacies. In the particular case of my presentation, I am making a comparison with Francisco Morazán and the legacy and the connections that exist and the legacy that there is with respect of the processes of emancipation of our peoples.
El lema del coloquio, unidad,
The
soberanía.
motto of the colloquium, unity, sovereignty and peace, terms and lessons that, according to historians, are necessary to review the humanist sense of the heroic deed and its extrapolation to the current and complex international scenario and the current war conflicts.
The Battle of Ayacucho is a very bloody battle, but it has its counterpart in the capitulation of Ayacucho, when the remaining royalist troops could have perished. What Antonio José de Sucre does is an expression of the humanism of the 19th century. That is to say, to offer an honorable capitulation to the enemy, when the enemy has been defeated. Sacrifices and war efforts that have united nations in the same continent should lead us to periods of reflection of unity and peace.
Pero la batalla de Ayacucho y la emancipación
But the Battle of Ayacucho and the emancipation of the continent continues to this day for the insurgent history movement.
En otro escenario y en otro tiempo.
In another scenario and in another time, it is no longer the Hispanic domination, but the domination of the North American empire that seeks to stifle, to suffocate the achievements, the advances, and the important thing is that as long as the population is aware of each of these steps against them, I believe that the historical conscience, the social and national conscience will be strengthened, fundamentally to defend those advances that continues to be made.
Esos avances que se siguen dando.
Este domingo 8 de diciembre, más de
This Sunday,
40
December 8,
actividades, más de
more than 40
40
educational
actividades
activities
informativas
rescue the idea of union, of the independence values, and the importance of Ayacucho in the collective memory of Latin America 200 years after.
Luis Francisco Blandón, Caracas, Venezuela.
And we go now to Peru as civil organizations march in commemoration of the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Ayacucho, demanding justice in the country. Civil organizations march in protest, denouncing that there is still no independence and that what was achieved from the Spaniards has become a colony of the great economic powers that dominate the nation. In this sense, the social groups took to the streets to demand justice for the 50 dead that the army left behind in the protest in disapproval of the takeover of the presidency by Dina Boluarte 2 years ago. Also, in the framework of the commemorations of the Battle of Ayacucho, the activities and protests will continue in the Pampara de la Quinoa, demanding justice from the government of Boluarte.
We are neither economically nor politically free. And what is more, they have led us to a moral crisis never seen before in our country. That is why only the people will give their own economic and political independence, both in the economic structure and also in the superstructure. The superstructure is political, it is also legal. It is also judicial, both in the field of the prosecutors and the courts.
And in other news, in Colombia, authorities reported that at least one person was killed and 14 others were injured after the explosion of a motorcycle loaded with explosives in the department of Valle del Cauca. According to local media, the event occurred in the municipality of Jamundi after police and army elements at a checkpoint intercepted the motorcycle driven by a man who detonated the device. They also highlighted that at least 7 police officers and another 7 civilians were seriously wounded and were taken to local health centers to receive the necessary medical attention. In addition, the departmental administration has offered up to 100 million Colombian pesos as a reward for those who collaborate with information that allows clarifying the motives and perpetrators of this event. And we move on to other topics. In Haiti, the authorities reported that the death toll due to heavy rains and floods has risen to 10. According to the latest report from the Department of Civil Protection, at least 6 deaths have been recorded in the Department of North. They also pointed out that 12 others have also been injured and another one is still missing. Floods in Grandans have also claimed at least 4 lives, while other 4 people are missing and 27 have been injured. In addition, the authorities reported that the weather conditions have caused significant damage, severely affecting infrastructure and the local population. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, X, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.